Muchas gracias. I did learn many imperial languages, including Arabic, French, English, Italian, etc., but not yet Spanish. So sorry about this. I will switch to English. So thank you very, very much for having me here. Thank you also to all the people who have been working behind the scenes and also in the front. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, so for the time, I just have my phone here so I can just respect the time. I'm really delighted to speak or be in conversation with you. I would like to try to think of how to expose. Maybe I can just move this a little bit because as you can see, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. I would like to try to think together with you the notion of exposing. I will focus on one aspect of the latest work that I have been doing called colonial toxicity. And maybe I can just comment on this notion of the museum and on the premise somehow of this invitation to think how to somehow question the mission of the museum. And I will show you in a minute that the museum has been somehow existing in a very colonial world, and I think it will continue to exist the way it is existing, unfortunately. And you will see why. I think the temporality of coloniality is really with us. It's living even in our bodies. And we will see in a minute why. But I'm very much interested in the notion of habitat. I think the habitat is what we should think about and we should advocate for. And there are many habitats, many people inhabit different sites and histories and stories in different ways. So that's really something I'm, let's say, keen to think about. Also, the notion of disrupting. I think that's what somehow some of the work I'm doing disrupts conventions and protocols, and that's what I will show you. So before we start, I think it's really important because we have been traveling to so many places around the world, and we have been really taking some trips, and some were realistic, ones were very fictional. And I think it's I'm really honored to land somewhere together with you, and we will land with the witness by Aisha at the very end. But I think it's really important to zoom out a little bit and to try to understand that we are, yes, here in 2024, but we are somehow part, and all of us, I mean, nobody's out of this very, very long process where borders were created, where, as you can see here, most, if maybe not most, but most of Western countries, I mean, the US is not mentioned directly here, and this is not really a super precise map. It's a Creative Commons, so anyone can use it, and I'm using it on purpose to really think of this scale and the temporality. So we talk about space, but we should also talk about temporality, about times of coloniality and colonialism and colonization. So it's very hard for me to talk about decolonization. I think it's easier for me to talk about colonialism. That's the world I live in. It's a colonial world, still a very colonial world, and I want to study that colonial world. And I'm really coming here or trying to think together with Frantz Fanon. He was mentioned at the beginning, 2 days ago, when he says that colonial, to be very precise, and I read it in French, I'm trying to translate it for you. He says that decolonization is a very violent process, is the replacement of, he says in French, espèce. We can translate it into species, a replacement of a species by another species. I don't think it will happen in the very near future. We can see that we have not been even able to stop a genocide that is being screened in front of our eyes. So I really don't believe in that, but I think it's very important in believing that this is possible. I think that's what keeps us doing the work that we are doing. This is this kind of temporalities and specialities of colonization ended or resulted in the division of the world to today. You know, we talk about the global south, the global north. You know, everyone is super comfortable, or many people are comfortable in dividing and keep, you know, these divisions and the borders between the north and the south, and there is the south in the north and the north and the south. And sometimes there are even, as you can see here, north in the south and south in the north. I'm thinking right now of Ceuta and Melilla. It's still a colony in Africa. So I think it's very difficult, and we have to maybe really relax a bit and try to be very precise and talk about contexts and talk about actions that we can do that can help us to think and change maybe few things. I don't think the museum or the academy, because academia is also a part of the processes that museums are also using. But what I will really try, I would love to talk to you about today is how climate, how human made climate change, and how the environment, the destruction of our environment, is also part of this colonial project. And here I'm specifically speaking about the atomic world and about all these powers that have been using oceans and deserts to test their nuclear powers, their nuclear weapons. So these countries, and you can read all the names here, have been using oceans and deserts to detonate their nuclear or test their nuclear weapons. And as we can see also in the next slide, that these are also the powers that are still oppressing and still commanding the world, not only in terms of knowledge, in terms of policies, but also the psychological space that we inhabit somehow. And some have declared the possession of nuclear weapons, but some did not declare it. And some have even the privilege to hide behind the notion of opacity. And here I'm thinking of the state of Israel. So what I will try to do with you here today, I will just focus on one of these powers, the French authorities, the French military and colonial authorities. I will try to share with you here what or how the French managed to use the Sahara Desert, the Algerian Sahara, during the Algerian Revolution and after the Algerian Revolution, to test its nuclear powers. I will do so through three actions or three forms of publicness, as I call them, three forms of sharing with different kinds of audiences. One is a translation project. The second one is performing. The third form of publicness is the rehearsing. So one is really translation, the second is a exhibition, and the third one is a publication. That I have been working on in the last few years together with many people. I mean, we are all part of collectives and of collaborations. We work, yes, with the institution, and we criticize institutions, but we do need to find ways of sharing this knowledge, but also to make it circulate and make many audiences see this and be aware of this, because this is not only about the French in the Sahara, this is about all of us, and we will see why in a minute. So the translation project is, I'll say you very quickly so that we know what we are doing. So I will just go through the three forms, and then I will give you the context of what I'm talking about. And what when I say the French nuclear weapons program in the Sahara, what was it and how it unfolded. So this was really important for me, this translation project, because it's about testimonies of lived experiences, bodily experiences that many people collected, including the NGO in Lyon, the Observatoire des Armements, and other activists and filmmakers that collected, and myself as well, I collected these witnesses, and they were mainly in Amazigh, in Arabic and in French, and we thought that we should I mean, even though Arabic is also one of the most spoken language, but apparently some are not really interested in this histories, but we thought it would be very nice to try to translate these witnesses and make them public, accessible to other audiences all over the world. And this means that we created the website and they are still accessible, and I will tell you how we did it in a minute. The second form of publicness is the exhibition performing colonial toxicity. And for me, the term performing here was very, very important because I really wanted the visitors to feel radioactivity, not radioactivity because it's invisible, we cannot feel it, but colonial toxicity. So I tried to really define it and make the colonial toxicity perform in the bodies and in the psyches of the visitors that came. And I will share with you also in a minute what it meant and how I tried to think about it. The very third form of publicness was this publication called colonial toxicity, rehearsing French radioactive architecture and landscape in the Sahara. And this is sort of repository of archives, repository of documents that speaks about the colonial toxicity. So these are the three forms of publicness that I used for this project. But for the context, the French army and maybe before talking about 1960s, just for your information, maybe for those who are not really familiar, you saw the map at the very beginning. You saw the scale of the French and the British empires. You saw how both countries expanded, colonized territories and lands. But here I'm just focusing on Algeria. So the French started colonizing Algeria in 1830 already. And the national liberation or the Algerian revolution or the Algerian War of Independence started in 1954 and ended in 1962. So this means that here, during the Algerian Revolution, the French, while they were already exploiting oil and gas in the Sahara, so this started already in mid-50s, and the very first exploitation of oil and gas started in 1956. They were looking for we will see in a minute, empty space. And here I am absolutely against this platitude, this colonial platitude of emptiness, but they were looking for a space or a territory to detonate their very first nuclear weapons. And this detonation was top secret at that very time. So they depicted or they indicated or selected these two areas, again, an existing town, it still exists today, and in where you will see in a minute, there is a mountain. So in the Reguen center for these experimentations, the French detonated 4 atomic bombs between 1960 and 1961, and in Nukke they detonated 13 underground atomic bombs between 1961 and 1966. So here you see that the French managed to negotiate with the newly independent Algerian government to keep testing the bombs in the Sahara between 1961 and 1966. So after the independence of Algeria, and the let's say justification was that all the atomic bombs will be under the ground in a mountain, so there will be no radioactivity that will contaminate and pollute the region. But apparently, thanks to the witnesses that are available and thanks to many documents, apparently, and again, as you will see in a minute, the archives are classified, so I cannot say I am 100% sure, but apparently out of 13 bombs, 11 were not contained. So the promise was not maintained. So in Reguen, there were these 4 atomic bombs. They were named after a rodent. It's an animal. It's called gerboise in French, gerbois in English. So they detonated gerboise bleu, blanc, rouge, and verte. So the flag, the French flag and the Algerian flag. Apparently, again, this is very, French. They used for most of the 4 bombs, they used towers except one, and I will share with you also the results of the radioactivity and the contamination of the soil and the land, and of course of the life of people living there. In Nikr, and specifically in Tenefella mountain, they detonated 13 atomic bombs. And here you can see the names of the atomic bombs. And you can see that they used gems, the names of the gems, that the pierres précieuses, the stones, the gems, to name these 13 atomic bombs, as you can see here on this screen. You see the resolution of these documents are really, really bad. This is not that, I was not able to find the right document, etc. It's just that this is part of the story. We use these very low resolution documents to document the non-accessibility of the information as well. So you can see I'm very much interested in architecture, but also really on the built, destroyed, and imagined environment. And here we do have the constructed environment that were used for these 2 centers, the Enneker Center and Regen Center. So I'm very much interested in their construction, and I'm also interested in their destruction, as you will see in a minute. But to be very clear, all of these events, stories, histories, documents around the French nuclear weapons program in the Sahara were top secret during the event, so between 1960 and 1966. The idea was that the archives would open in 2020, and the archive have never been opened. They are still classified. And they are still secret. And I understand, that these imperial colonial powers don't want to share the recipe of a nuclear bomb. I mean, this is clear. Fine, don't do it. Sure, this is very dangerous for everyone. So that I get, but I really don't understand how come the Saharan people, but also the French veterans who were there, cannot know about the impact of this colonial toxicity. So in 2020, the archive was supposed to open, and they started working before 2020 on this, on collecting, on understanding, on starting really to prepare for the repository, for mainly the book, to be honest, the text, because that's what I was supposed to do. And unfortunately, they never opened these archives, and I really resisted, disobeyed, disrupted that kind of imposed amnesia, because I thought it's not fair for not only the people who live there, but also the veterans, because we know that it's not secret. Their experience, and even if you go there to those sites, you see all the impact. I mean, you don't see radioactivity because it's unfortunately, that's also the danger of this colonial toxicity, but you can see that those landscapes there is something in those landscapes, and you can speak with the people who live there and with the people also who return to France, and they are both very, very sick. And we know that this sickness keeps, it can be, it is, not can be, it will be, it is transmitted to the children, and the children is really transgenerational. So what I did, I'm like, good, the message is clear, but it's really not so possible and thinkable to this is very to to obey to that secrecy. So I and here it's blocked. Maybe hello, yes, okay, no, yes, it flayed. Okay, yeah, maybe, but just okay. Let's, because I have to go back in order to make it play, but it does. Okay, now, okay, let's do it. Yes, so this was really an important event because the Algerian War of Independence was being waged at that very, very moment as well, between, as I said, 1956, 54 and 1962. And while this war was being waged in the northern part of Algeria, and we know, through many works, many research, but also exhibitions and films like the Battle of Algiers, etc. This was a very violent conflict between the French and Algeria and also their allies. But at the very same moment when this was happening, the Sahara was, there was construction sites in the Sahara, really huge constructions that were being realized there. And the excuse or the justification of choosing this very site was because it was vacant, it was empty. And as we did with this publication, Deserts Are Not Empty, and with the introduction against the regime of emptiness, this space is inhabited. This space is not only inhabited by humans, but also by non-human forces. And it has a very, very important equilibrium that one should and must not touch it. But unfortunately, as you saw at the beginning, deserts and oceans are being polluted and destroyed. And we have also to expose that, and we have to make sure that it stops. It will stop. It stops, hopefully. But as I said before, I have my doubts. So what I started doing was to collect as many information as possible from the 1960s to today. And as historians, normally you really decide. I'm going to only work between 1961 to 1966 and only speak and work and dig into these histories. But for this very project, it was not possible. One, because the archives were classified, are still classified, so top secret. Second, because it's really about the temporality, about the future. Radioactivity is irreversible. It's also forever. That's also part of the coloniality I was talking about at the beginning. So it did not stop in 1966 when the French left and kept doing the nuclear testing in the Pacific Ocean between 1966 and 1996. So here, what I really tried to do was to collect videos, films, leaked reports, any kind of report, military reports, medical reports, environmental reports, photographs from anybody, even online, from online sources. Spoke a lot with people. And I always tried to read what the French were saying, and the French authority were saying that in 1966 we cleaned the area and we did what we had to do. And here, as you can see in this very photograph from 2007, the site, this center, still exists today. Yeah? So I was interested, as I mentioned, in the built environment, but I was also interested in the underground. They built many laboratories under the ground, and not only because it was secret, but also to protect the employees from the heat and the winds of the Sahara. So these two tunnels, as you can see, they had to be walled off, but they are still accessible. And here is a team that was led by a filmmaker, Abi Ben Shiha, who were able to go there and film these catacombs, I would say, of radioactivity. Another very important aspect of this colonial toxicity was the soil, the land. Here, this is a bomb that was detonated on the ground, and as you can see here, the effect of the contamination of this ground. We also included this kind of screen recording of the site that's highly radioactive. They tried to clean it, as you can see, but unfortunately, people can really easily die if you approach this radioactive site. We also collected, we showed you the built environment. We also collected the ruins, the destroyed environment, this kind of, not sure how to call them, in architecture, we can call them, maybe ruins, parts of buildings, cadavers of buildings. We can call them many things, but they are also wastes as well, and they are still today in the Sahara. What's really important, as well as I was mentioning with the newspaper articles, I started also collecting newspaper articles from the 1960s, but also from today. The Sahara, and every year, if I'm not, I think I know in Spain as well, because from social media, I was able to save many photographs that were taken also in this part of the world, in Spain. There are every year around March, April, the winds of the Sahara are extremely powerful, and they bring to you beautiful colors. You have fantastic landscapes. You can take photographs, no, and post them on social media. Unfortunately, that dust and that sand is also carrying radioactivity. Scientists say it's not enough to they said many things, scientists. So it's not really enough. You have to inhale, you have to be exposed to more quantities to be sick. I really don't know. I mean, really, this we have to double, triple, quadruple check. But so this boomerang effect, I think it's also very important. And I also collected all these information. So just for the context, that's what we are talking about. When I got this invitation by If I Can Dance, I Don't Want to Be Part of Your Revolution, which is a foundation based in Amsterdam, I said they have a biennial called, every 2 years there is a biennial, but 1 year ago now, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, there was a biennial called Bodies and Technologies. And they invite always 3 researchers and 3 artists, and I was part of the 3 researchers. And I said, for me, it's very clear, it's about colonial toxicity. We have to find forms. The form is an exhibition, yes, but this is also about performativity. So I said, I have to find ways to make the colonial toxicity perform. This is not me. Okay. So and the other aspect I also was really convinced about was the publication. So we had this tool, and they said, look, we would really need to raise funding, much more funding, because the publication is going to be super experimental, and I know it's not going to be about 20 pages. And this is a work that I want to share with the world, because I have been doing it, and it's, if with the exhibition it will disappear, but with the publication it will remain. People will keep using it. And also we had this translation project that came while I was working with witnesses, and I very quickly in Amsterdam understood that this is, if you have them in French or in Arabic and Amazigh, nobody will read them. So we had to translate them, and this is what we did. So we started first, and this was really important for me to start with the preparation of the audience, which means that if you read, and they are public, if you read the witnesses of the people who went through this catastrophe, this nuclear hell, you somehow, it's really not about images. It's not about somebody who is translating to you. This is really about what they went through. And some of them were also very angry. Some of them were also French, saying that, we were there on site. We didn't know. And this is what happened to us. And now our kids are also sick. So what we did was to invite colleagues. Again, I said this is a really huge collective project. You can see all the names of the fantastic colleagues that I really thank. We asked them that if they have time, they had between May and September, they could submit we offered them to give them 2 witnesses in one of the languages that they speak, and they translate them into English. And we really wanted to do this with them and not to hire, an official translator, etc., for a number of reasons. One is about they work also on similar topics, and they can do this or work or use it also for their own work and for their with their students as well. Some of them are also teaching, some of them are activists. But we also wanted to keep the authenticity of the translation, of the text. Some of the people who were interviewed do not really, are not academics. So it means that their text, it's really about what they went through. So we really wanted to keep this, and we created this website We had, again, really long time, and it was not about, the pressure. We documented also the process, and we shared the process with the public, so everything is online. We kept the original, and we offered also the translation. So you can see we asked each if they are still alive, if each um, witness if she, he, they, and to be very honest, they were mainly he, um, if he wanted to be public or not, but we anonymized most of their identities for because of their family, etc. So this is really very important moment because people became aware of the gravity and of the intensity of this colonial toxicity. And here you can see the website. It's still, let's say, again, it's accessible to anyone who has access to internet and who can speak either French, Amazigh, Arabic, or English. That was really the first iteration. While this fantastic 20 colleagues and friends and activists were working on the translation, we published them. I was working on the publication and on the exhibition, and the exhibition came before the publication. So we had If I Can Dance, as I mentioned, as a commission, like the commissioner. We also applied for funding. Pro Helvetia also participated in funding the publication and the exhibition. And thanks to If I Can Dance, they reached out to Frame a Frame in Amsterdam, and we had this exhibition called Performing Colonial Toxicity. And Frame a Frame is a huge it's a former depot of trams, so it's really an immense, quite large space. So I wanted to design this exhibition, and I have one privilege. I studied architecture as well as undergrad, so really working with space and designing exhibition for me was also, or is, very, very important. So I said I would love to really use your space and try to create stations, try to create moments. I'm trying very hard. Maybe can you next? I don't know why. Yes. Okay. Here. Oops. Too much. Yeah. So what I tried to do here was to work with the space of these frame a frame, then to try to use most, not many, not everything, but most of the documents that I collected over the years and tried to assemble them together. So I created different topics like justice, atmospheric bombs, and used A4 papers and assembled those information together. We used also I'm so sorry because it's okay. And we use these stations, this wall, this very fragile A4 paper assembled together with these rings, also to project videos and documentaries of the sites so that you can see today how these sites look like. And we also interviewed a number of colleagues, not only we have the witnesses, the written witnesses, the translated witnesses of the victims, but we also have interviews with researchers, so academics like Jill Jarvis or Gabriel Hecht, but we also have discussions and conversations with artists and filmmakers who went there to film the sites, and also scientists to understand really what radioactivity is and means, and so that the people who were or come to this exhibition can understand the intensity of this exhibition. So as you can see here, we really tried to make this secrecy, what was secret in the 1960s and still secret today, accessible to many publics, people who can come to this exhibition and see the colonial toxicity performing on their body. That was really the aim of this exhibition, and it was also designed in a way that it can be sent to any institution around the world who can pay for it to arrive to that institution. So we can fold it. It's an A4 paper with these rings. We assembled all the rings together. So it's very easy to install, and it's traveling. It's traveled to Zurich, the GTA exhibitions, to the Mosaic Rooms in London, to Brown University, and it will continue. It will travel. I mean, the idea is it has to travel as in in many places as possible, so that we become all aware of these histories. Because if we talk about Hiroshima, we all know, and if we say Jarboa or Tenafilla, we don't know. And this is, I think, also part of this disruption and the role of exhibition makers. What was also very important was to try to catch the attention of the visitors. For example, in this very case, we have a station called Jarboa site, and this station, the term is not familiar, I'm sure, but I tried to create a term that would express the or name what we are seeing here. This is a highly radioactive matter that was created, as you saw before with the Google Earth video. It was a highly radioactive matter that's still there, and but we don't because we don't name it, we don't refer to it. And I was inspired by Trinity bomb and the Trinitite that the US also created. I mean, there are many nuclear sites around the world, and that bomb, if you say Trinitite, you know that you are talking about a fused sand that's radioactive and not here. So I also tried to name this station, and for each station there is a caption and also some text to be read so that people understand what they are looking at. So that was really, really important. And in terms of design, I tried to work with the human body and the scale. So in the top, you can really see these huge photographs. Some of them have very, let's say, good resolution, and some of them not really. And we also worked with stills that we took from existing videos and films. So, sorry, I'm trying really to... Yes, no? No. Maybe next, please. Yes. So what was really important as well was the reproduction of the witnesses. So when you approach the stations, you have to read. You have to. I mean, you have to. I force them, or you visitors, to read, because that's what you see, and this is really at the same height of the human eye. So in a way, the visitors are really. Excuse me. Immersed, thank you. Exactly. They're absolutely immersed by all this information. I was really looking for that word. And of the abundance of the information, of data, of knowledge, of films, of videos, of witnesses, of all kinds of documents that will testify to the events that happened and continue to happen and continue to toxify the deserts and the life of people there. So that was really a part also of the performativity. There was also audio as well that we cannot hear today. I was really afraid of technology. I'm happy you don't have audio, but there was also some audio elements as well, so that you can even feel and hear the Geiger of the radioactivity speaking to us. So that's the second iteration, and the very third iteration, that's how I end also this presentation, if it goes forward. While doing, all this work, I was very... Huh? He said where the point is. Oh, okay. I mentioned, it's travel to other places, and each time we adapt the exhibition to the space. So we can cut parts of the upper parts or the lower parts, and we adapt it to the space. And that was really part of the design of the exhibition. So the last iteration of the project, or this form of publicness, is the publication. It's a sort of repository of documents that, again, because I did all the work, I thought it would be very, very important to really share it with the public. We share it with other people who are interested in continuing doing this work, because as we mentioned before, these documents are not, or the institutional archives are not available. So while collecting and understanding these documents, while also I organized the exhibition with all these stations and all these themes and topics. For the book, I thought it's really important to focus on the two sites, to make sure that when you open it, you know that we have two sites, Regen and Inike. And for each site, we have kind of sub chapters, and these chapters are very much in relation to space. And so we have the site, we have exposed bodies, construction sites, etc. And the notion of the above and under the ground was also really, really important. Here, again, it's a collective project. So many people worked on. Oh, sorry, you can take a picture. You wanted to take a picture? No, the guy. Yeah, okay. So we were very important, conversation with the graphic designer. His name is François Gérard Meunier. I We had, and there was like other people also involved in this. He came with this fantastic idea to create to use colors to create spaces so that the documents that we use for each sub chapter can be read by readers, because the problem was that there are so many provenances, so many sources. Some are very low resolution, some are very, very high resolution, and we wanted to create a sort of space where people can read them in a way that they can recognize where they are, because it's a nearly 600 page book. So what we did, we were inspired by, unfortunately, also highly radio active. These are lava coming out of one of the mountains, and this is also a metamorphosis of a stone. And the colors, I mean, right now it's not maybe very, very clear, but we took the colors, or we tried to use the colors and to come up with like a range of colors that one for Regen and one for Iniker, so that we could create these spaces where people can read and be somehow immersed again exactly in these documents. And so here we have the Regen with the subtitles or sub chapters, and Iniker with also its own sub chapters. And the idea was to really make sure that the readers will be confronted first with images, with evidence, without any caption, without any text. So the first thing when you open the chapter is that you encounter and you are cut by all these illustration, all these evidence that you can see. Sometimes you guess what it is, sometimes you don't. And after each of the a pile of evidence of images, we had the captions. And in the captions, really important, because we mentioned all the sources as well. It means that whoever is interested in keeping doing this work and researching further, they can go and find these originals, and they can also mention them. So we can really use this as a repository of evidence, and that was for us extremely important. And here I have one more minute, and I am in the 40, one. Yeah. So in this one more minute, what's really important for me, not only for the translation, the exhibition, and this is Aisha that we will listen to in a minute, that we will, the most important thing was not to think this as an isolated episode, not isolated from, saying, oh no, this is, the French and Algeria, this is an issue between these two countries. No, this is really about all of us. This is really about, as we mentioned before, this sand, this dust is traveling all over the world. This is a responsibility that we all have. And this is why this exhibition has to travel, and we do need to remember Tenefilla. We do need to remember, and it's very close to Spain, so maybe so, Yeah, so it's very important to resist this isolation and to always say this is not our problem. This is our problem. This is the problem of every one of us. It's the problem, yes, of the Algerian government. Yes, it's the problem of the French government. It's the problem of the international government, international community. But as you know, international community has failed to prevent violence. So it's really our problem, all of us, and it's circulating as you can see here. But to really end this colonial toxicity, I would like to read to you a important witness by Aisha, who was 10 years old when she was in Mertutek. Mertutek is a village in the Sahara, and because of one of these accidents, beryl accident between brackets, radioactivity, or there was a radioactive cloud that crossed their village, and most of her relatives died, and she was with her aunt with the animals outside of the village. So when she came back, um, she discovered the death of her relatives, and I would like really to end with her telling us what she remembers. So it's, yes, about history, it's also about memory, yes, it's about archive, but it's also about really the bodily experience of people who live in these territories. So this is how I will read, and I will have to leave you with her text and read for you. It's Aisha speaking. The witness was recorded by Bruno Hajih, and it is accessible to all of you in a movie called Atom by Elisabeth Levray. And she speaks in Amazigh. Here we have the translation in English. What do you want? What story do you want me to tell? I don't know of any other story than this one. I don't know any others. I only know that when it was detonated, it is like it was yesterday. When this thing happened, this, what do you think? What is this thing? It's a star? No. It's not a star. A trembling? No. That thing is terrible. And all of a sudden, trails of smoke were going one way and the other. This. We asked ourselves, what is this thing? This. We thought the mountains were falling. We had seen the helicopters flying in all directions. It was noisy, and all of a sudden we saw a white shape. They came out of the smoke like a ball. This. We were all shaking. We were scared. We ran off. We hid in the trees. I said to my aunt, say your prayer, that's death coming. I said to her, I think it's death that has already happened. We went down the river. When we arrived, people were dead. That's what happened. I was probably 10 years old. I was a little girl. I was a shepherdess. I was a shepherdess when Taurit exploded and everything that happened. I remember. I kept my goats, and that's it. Much later, we were told it was the bomb. It's true.